Thanks.
We appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Let me introduce you to our first guest at the table. Congressman Gohmert of Texas, a Republican, is the senior Republican on the Judiciary Committee on Crime, Terrorism, and Homeland Security, and we're going to be talking with him about national security and terrorism. Welcome, Congressman.
Good to be with you.
New Rasmussen poll that just was released yesterday. Confidence in America's efforts in the war on terror has fallen again this month, and following the unsuccessful terrorist bombing attempt in New York's Times Square, more voters than ever now believe the nation is not safer today than it was before the September 11 terrorist attacks. Is that perception by the American public correct?
Well, it would certainly appear to be when you have two attempts to kill people on our soil, actually one in the air, so to speak. And the only reason they don't go off is not because of any great intelligence work or law enforcement work, but simply because the panties failed to go up, and so did the vehicle in Times Square. So it certainly seems to be some legitimate concern that the people have.
Well, what would you do to remedy that?
Well, a number of things. First of all, you give the Director of National Intelligence a little more authority than apparently Blair had, make him something besides a fall guy. But for a number of things, first of all, you don't give people Miranda warnings or Miranda rights. Well, actually, you're not giving them rights. You're telling them they have rights they don't have. But they're not American citizens. You interrogate. You don't torture them, but you interrogate all you can. My goodness, after the airline attempted bombing coming into Detroit, there's no reason to read that guy Miranda warnings. None. What Miranda does is say if someone is an American citizen and they're entitled to those rights under the Constitution, which these guys aren't, then if they say anything after that, you can use it in court. Where you've got guys caught red-handed, you could care less what they confess to about what they've done. You've got them red-handed. You don't need their confession. You need their intelligence. And we failed miserably on that with the Times Square bomber. For another thing, once somebody starts talking, you don't start leaking what they're saying. When there's talk of a courier out there that you're pursuing, somebody in intelligence has had a terrible breakdown. They've got to shore up those leaks. You just told the courier you're after them. So shore up the leaks. Quit trying to treat terrorists who are at war with our country as if they're some civil criminal. Now, I know people are concerned about making sure we live by our Constitution, and I absolutely believe in that, absolutely. But the Constitution gives different rights to different people. For example, my 4 years in the Army, I was not entitled to the rights that you are if you're suspected of committing a crime. I would have to go under the UCMJ. I don't have the rights to a jury of indiscriminate selection. What you get are the people that the commander who convened the court-martial selected for you and put on the panel. You don't have a right to peremptory challenges. And right on down the line, these are the people that are defending our rights, and they don't have the same constitutional rights that American civilians. So there are different constitutional rights. The Curran case back in 1942 made clear that when somebody, even an American citizen, is at war with America, they don't have the same rights that an American citizen criminal would have.
Well, perhaps that last clarification in response, because I wanted to just point out that the person in the Times implicated in the Times Square, in fact, was a U.S.
a naturalized citizen, just like in the Curran case back in 1942, when some German saboteurs were released from U-boats and came ashore. One of them was an American citizen, and the Supreme Court said, when you go at war against your own country, then you are held as a prisoner of war unless you're suspected of committing some war crime, in which case you can be tried when all is over after the cessation of hostility.